Morning prayer. Black mother declares blessings over her family's life. We don't need your kind bringing all that religious nonsense into our hospital. The board's decision is final. My prayers have sustained this community for 40 years, Dr. Whitmore, and they will long after you've forgotten this conversation. Gloria Stevens stood firm in the pristine hospital boardroom, her weathered hands clutching a well-worn Bible. At 72, she carried herself with the quiet dignity that comes from a lifetime of standing her ground. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across Dr. Whitmore's face as he shuffled papers, refusing to meet her eyes. Behind him, the board members shifted uncomfortably in their leather chairs. Gloria had been the volunteer chaplain at Westside Memorial for over 4 decades, offering comfort to patients and families in their darkest hours. Now, with the hospital's new modernization initiative, they wanted to professionalize all services, which meant removing community volunteers like her. Mrs. Stevens, the board has voted unanimously, Dr. Whitmore continued, his voice taking on the practice patience one uses with difficult children. We're bringing in certified interfaith chaplains with proper credentials. Your morning prayers in the waiting room are simply no longer appropriate for a modern medical facility. Gloria tightened her grip on her Bible. Those morning prayers have helped thousands of families through their darkest hours. You can't measure that on your charts and evaluations. The room fell silent except for the soft hum of the air conditioning. At stake wasn't just Gloria's volunteer position, it was her life's calling, her ministry to a community that had raised her children alongside her, that had held her hand when she buried her husband Walter 7 years ago. Security will escort you to collect your personal items, Dr. Whitmore said, pressing a button on his desk. Your access badge has been deactivated, but let's go back to how this all started. It was just 3 hours earlier when Gloria's day began, as it had for nearly half a century. The pale pink light of dawn filtered through Gloria's kitchen window as she mixed batter for her famous sweet potato muffins. The radio played softly in the background, Aretha Franklin's Amazing Grace, a song that never failed to lift her spirits. Gloria hummed along, her movements practiced and precise despite the arthritis that had been troubling her hands lately. At 4:30 a.m., most of her neighborhood was still asleep, but Gloria had always been an early riser. The morning hours belong to the Lord, her grandmother used to say, and Gloria had lived by those words her entire life. The kitchen was the heart of her modest 2-bedroom home, the same house where she and Walter had raised their 3 children, the same kitchen where she'd taught her daughters to cook Sunday dinner, and now where she taught her grandchildren. The walls were a warm yellow that Walter had painted when they first moved in back in 1977. She'd never had the heart to change it. "Mama, you're up already?" Denise, Gloria's youngest daughter, appeared in the doorway, wrapping her robe tightly around herself. At 42, Denise had her mother's strength but carried it differently, with the weariness of someone fighting battles on too many fronts. "Good morning, baby. Just getting my muffins ready for the hospital," Gloria replied, not missing a beat in her stirring. "You know you don't have to go every single morning," Denise said, pouring herself coffee from the pot Gloria had already brewed. "They don't pay you for any of this," Gloria chuckled softly. "Not all payments come in a check, Denise. Some come in the smile of a worried mother when someone finally sees her. Some come in the tears of a healing heart." Denise sighed, leaning against the counter. "I just worry about you doing too much, especially with your arthritis acting up." "The Lord gives me strength when I need it," Gloria replied simply. She carefully folded in the roasted pecans, the secret ingredient that made her muffins requested by name among the hospital staff. Denise watched her mother for a long moment. "Jason's still asleep." "He was up late studying." Gloria nodded, her face softening at the mention of her grandson. "That boy is going to make a fine doctor someday, first doctor in our family. If he can get through these pre-med courses," Denise said, worry creeping into her voice. "He's under so much pressure, Mama." Gloria spooned the batter into the muffin tin. "Pressure makes diamonds, child. Your son is stronger than he knows, just like his mother." The gentle hum of their conversation was interrupted by the buzzing of Denise's phone. She glanced at it and her expression tightened. "It's Michael, again." Gloria kept her face carefully neutral. Michael was Denise's ex-husband, Jason's father. Their divorce 3 years ago had been bitter, made worse when Michael lost his job at the auto plant and fell behind on child support. He'd moved to Atlanta for work, promises of sending money becoming increasingly rare. "He wants to talk about Jason's college money," Denise said, staring at the phone as if it might bite her. "Whatever that man has to say can wait until a decent hour," Gloria said firmly, sliding the muffins into the oven and setting the timer. "Now, would you like a proper breakfast before you head to work?" Denise hesitated, then set the phone down. I have time for some eggs, I guess. As Gloria moved to the refrigerator, the soft creak of floorboards announced another presence. Jason stood in the doorway, tall and lanky at 18, with his grandfather's thoughtful eyes. "Morning, Grandma, Mom." His voice still carried traces of sleep. "I smelled muffins." Gloria's face lit up at the sight of her grandson. "Sweet potato pecan, your favorite, but they're for the hospital people, young man." "Not even one for your favorite grandson?" Jason asked with a grin that mirrored his grandfather's. "You're my only grandson, which makes you my favorite by default," Gloria laughed, reaching up to pat his cheek. "But yes, I made extra, just like I have every Tuesday since you were tall enough to reach the counter." Jason's smile faltered slightly. "Dad called last night, after you were asleep, Mom." The kitchen fell silent, save for the ticking of the old cat-shaped clock on the wall, a housewarming gift from Gloria's church friends back in 1977. What did he want? Denise asked, her voice carefully controlled. Jason shrugged, suddenly finding the floor fascinating. Said he might not be able to help with tuition this semester. His new job isn't working out like he thought. Denise pressed her lips together but said nothing. Gloria watched her daughter struggle to keep her emotions in check for her son's sake. "The Lord provides, Jason," Gloria said confidently, returning to her breakfast preparations. "Your education is in his hands, and he's never let this family down yet." Jason nodded, though the worry remained etched across his young face. "I should probably apply for more scholarships." "We'll figure it out," Denise assured him, reaching out to squeeze his arm. "Don't you worry about that, you just keep those grades up." The timer chimed, and Gloria retrieved her muffins from the oven. The sweet, spicy aroma filled the kitchen, momentarily pushing aside the weight of their concerns. "Now both of you sit down," Gloria instructed, setting plates on the table. "We're going to have breakfast as a family, and then we're going to pray together before we start this day." They ate amid comfortable conversation, intentionally steering clear of the topic of money or Michael. Gloria observed her daughter and grandson carefully. They were carrying burdens that seemed too heavy for their shoulders, but Gloria knew better than most that strength often showed itself in the most difficult times. After breakfast, they gathered hands around the table as they had done every morning since Jason was born. "Lord," Gloria began, her voice strong and clear, "we thank you for this new day and all the blessings within it. We thank you for the food on our table and the love in our hearts. We ask you to walk with Denise as she heads to her job at the bank today, to give her wisdom and patience. Be with Jason as he studies and prepares for his future as a healer. And Lord, be with the patients and families at Westside Memorial today. Let them feel your presence through my humble service. And Father," she continued, her voice lowering slightly, "we lift up Michael to you. Whatever struggles he's facing, Lord, help him find his way back to being the father Jason needs." "Amen," they said in unison. Jason glanced at his watch. "I should get ready for class, and I need to finish getting ready for work," Denise added, standing to clear the plates. Gloria nodded, already packing her muffins into the large plastic container she'd been using for years. "And I need to get to the hospital for morning prayers." As she gathered her things, her Bible, her prayer notebook filled with names of patients and their families, and her container of muffins, Gloria felt the familiar sense of purpose that had guided her life. Walter had always said she had a minister's heart, even without formal training. After he died, those morning prayers at the hospital had become her lifeline as much as they were comfort to others. "Will you be home for dinner, Mama?" Denise asked as she buttoned her blazer, ready for another day as assistant manager at First National Bank. "The Lord willing and the creek don't rise," Gloria replied with a smile, using one of Walter's favorite expressions. "I'm visiting Mrs. Johnson in the cancer ward after prayers, and then I have that meeting with the new hospital administration." Denise paused, halfway through applying her lipstick. "What meeting?" Gloria waved dismissively. "Just some new procedures they want to discuss, nothing to worry about." "Do you want me to go with you?" Denise offered. "I could take a long lunch." "Child, I was handling hospital bureaucracy before you were born," Gloria chuckled. "You focus on your job, I can handle Dr. High-and-Mighty Whitmore just fine." Jason appeared, backpack slung over one shoulder. "Need a ride to the hospital, Grandma?" "I'm heading right past there on my way to campus." "That would be lovely," Gloria agreed, gathering her things. "Let me just grab my sweater." As they drove through the streets of their neighborhood, Gloria took in the familiar sights. She'd lived in this part of town her entire life, watched it change through the decades. The corner where the old five-and-dime had stood in the 60s was now a convenience store. The lot where civil rights marchers had once gathered was now a community park. Gloria had been there for all of it, a living witness to history. "You're quiet this morning, Grandma," Jason observed as they stopped at a red light. Gloria smiled. Just saying my morning hellos to the neighborhood, baby. This place holds a lot of memories. Like what? He asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. See that building there? Gloria pointed to a brick storefront with a beauty salon. That used to be Mr. Harrington's law office. He was one of the first black lawyers in town. In '68, when the sanitation workers were striking, he offered free legal advice to anyone who got arrested during the protests. Were you part of those protests? Jason asked, glancing at his grandmother with newfound interest. Your grandfather and I both, Gloria affirmed. Walter was working at the electric company then. They tried to fire him for joining the strike, but the union stepped in. That's when we learned the power of standing together. Jason was quiet for a moment. I wish I'd known Grandpa better. He knew you, Gloria said softly. He used to sit by your crib and tell you stories about his time in Vietnam, about the friends he made there. He'd say, this boy's going to heal people someday. He saw the doctor in you before anyone else did. As they pulled up to the hospital entrance, Jason's expression had turned thoughtful. Thanks for the ride down memory lane, Grandma. Gloria patted his hand. Sometimes we need to look back to find the strength to move forward. She gathered her things and opened the car door. Have a blessed day, baby. I'll see you tonight. Love you, Grandma, Jason called as she closed the door. Love you more, she replied, their ritual exchange since he was a toddler. Gloria straightened her shoulders as she approached the hospital entrance, preparing herself for her ministry. For 20 years, she'd been coming to this same spot, offering morning prayers for anyone who wanted to join staff getting off night shifts, families who had spent anxious nights beside hospital beds, even doctors and nurses seeking a moment of peace before beginning their demanding days. The familiar faces greeted her as she set up in the small waiting area near the main entrance. Nurse Martinez, coming off the night shift, her eyes tired but her smile warm. Old Mr. Peterson, whose wife was recovering from hip surgery, two young nurses' aides who had recently started attending the morning prayers. Morning, Mrs. Stevens, called Nurse Martinez. Those sweet potato muffins smell divine. Fresh from the oven, Gloria confirmed, opening the container. Help yourself, dear. You look like you've had a long night. Triplets in the NICU, Martinez explained, gratefully accepting a muffin. All doing well, thank the Lord. Gloria nodded, making a mental note to add those babies and their parents to her prayer list. As more people gathered, she felt the familiar sense of community forming around her, a temporary congregation of souls seeking comfort, guidance, and connection in a place often filled with uncertainty and fear. At precisely 7 a.m., Gloria opened her Bible. Good morning, family, she began, as she always did. Let's bow our heads together and invite the Lord into our day. Her prayer was not lengthy or filled with fancy words, but it carried the weight of genuine faith and decades of lived experience. She prayed for the patients by name, those she knew and those whose names are known only to you, Lord. She prayed for the doctors and nurses, for wisdom and steady hands. She prayed for families keeping vigil, for peace that passes understanding. After the prayer, she read a brief passage from Psalms, then closed with what had become her signature blessing. May the God who heals bodies and spirits walk with you today. May you see his hand in the kindness of strangers and the skill of healers, and may you never forget that you are loved beyond measure by the Creator who knows every hair on your head. Amen. The small gathering dispersed, many stopping to thank Gloria or share updates on their loved ones. She listened to each one, offering words of encouragement or simply a warm hand clasp when words seemed inadequate. As the last person left, Gloria noticed a man in an expensive suit watching from near the administration offices. Dr. Whitmore, the new hospital administrator who had arrived 6 months ago from a prestigious hospital in Chicago. He'd made it clear from the beginning that he had big plans for bringing Westside Memorial into the modern era. He approached her now, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. Mrs. Stevens, good morning. I see your gathering was well attended as usual. Good morning, Dr. Whitmore, Gloria replied pleasantly. Just sharing a little hope to start the day. Would you care for a muffin, sweet potato pecan? He waved away the offer. No, thank you. Actually, I wanted to remind you about our meeting at 10 a.m. The board will all be present. I have it marked in my calendar, Gloria assured him, though in truth, she kept her schedule in her heart rather than on paper. 40 years of routine had made such formalities unnecessary. Excellent. We have some important changes to discuss regarding hospital protocols and volunteer services. His tone was professionally pleasant, but Gloria had lived long enough to recognize when someone was choosing their words carefully. I look forward to it, Gloria replied, meeting his gaze steadily. After he walked away, Gloria felt an unfamiliar flutter of anxiety. In her 4 decades of service, she'd seen administrators come and go, hospital policies change and evolve. She'd adapted as needed while keeping the essence of her ministry intact. But something about Dr. Whitmore's manner suggested that the changes he had in mind might be more fundamental. She pushed the thought aside and gathered her things. She had patients to visit before the meeting, souls who needed comfort more than she needed to worry about administrative details. Her first visit was to Mrs. Johnson, a 75-year-old widow battling her second round of cancer. Gloria had known Harriet Johnson since they were both young mothers in the PTA together in the early 1970s. "Gloria Stevens, as I live and breathe," Harriet greeted her from the hospital bed, her voice weaker than it had been the previous week, but her spirit undimmed. "You bring any of those famous muffins, or are they all gone already?" "Saved one just for you," Gloria replied, pulling a muffin wrapped in a napkin from her bag. "Don't tell the nurses I'm bringing you contraband." Harriet laughed, the sound turning into a soft cough. "What they don't know won't hurt them." Besides, if a woman can't have a sweet potato muffin when she's staring down cancer, when can she? Gloria pulled up a chair beside the bed. "How are you really doing, Harriet? And don't give me that I'm fine business. We're too old for those games." Harriet's smile faded slightly. "The chemo's rough this time around, rougher than before." She looked out the window at the clear blue sky. "I keep thinking about James, wondering if he's waiting for me." James, Harriet's husband, had passed 3 years before Gloria lost Walter. The two couples had been friends for decades, raising their children together, supporting each other through life's ups and downs. "I have no doubt that man is keeping your place warm," Gloria said gently, "but I don't think he's expecting you just yet. The Lord still has work for you here." "Does he now? And what might that be? I can barely get from the bed to the bathroom without help." Gloria reached out to take her friend's thin hand. "Your grandchildren need your stories, Harriet. Your wisdom, your recipe for peach cobbler that you still haven't shared with anyone." That drew a genuine laugh from Harriet. "And I'm taking that recipe to my grave, thank you very much. Let them wonder about it for generations to come." They sat together, two women who had witnessed the same history, shared the same struggles, celebrated the same victories. Gloria read a few psalms, then they prayed together, not the formal prayer of the morning gathering, but the intimate conversation of old friends talking to a God they had walked with their entire lives. As Gloria prepared to leave, Harriet held onto her hand. "You're the only one who doesn't treat me like I'm already gone, Gloria. Everyone else comes in here with those sad eyes, talking in hushed voices like I'm already laid out for viewing." "Well, I've known you since 1972, Harriet Johnson, and you've been too stubborn to go anywhere you didn't want to go since then," Gloria replied with a smile. "You'll beat this thing just to prove the doctor's wrong, I expect." Harriet squeezed her hand. "You come back tomorrow, you hear? Bring another muffin." "Wild horses couldn't keep me away," Gloria promised. As she left Harriet's room, Gloria checked her watch. She had time for one more visit before her meeting with the board. She headed to the pediatric ward, where 8-year-old Marcus Williams was recovering from surgery after a car accident. Marcus's face lit up when she appeared in the doorway. "Miss Gloria, did you bring your special book?" Gloria smiled, already pulling her well-worn children's Bible from her bag. This one had colorful illustrations that had captured the imagination of countless children over the years. "I sure did. And how are you feeling today, young man?" "The doctor says I can go home tomorrow if my x-rays look good," Marcus reported proudly, pointing to his casted leg. "Everybody at school is gonna sign my cast." "That's wonderful news," Gloria said, settling into the chair beside his bed. Marcus's mother, who worked 2 jobs to support her 3 children, couldn't be there during weekday mornings. Gloria had been visiting Marcus every day since his admission, making sure he never felt alone. "Can we read the David and Goliath story again?" Marcus asked eagerly. "That's my favorite." "Mine too," Gloria agreed, opening the Bible to the familiar tale of the young shepherd facing the giant. As she read, Marcus's eyes grew wide with wonder, even though he'd heard the story many times before. After finishing the story, Gloria closed the book. "You know, Marcus, you're a lot like David in this story." "I am," the boy's eyes widened. "But I'm not fighting any giants." "Aren't you, though?" Gloria gestured to his cast. "That accident was your giant. And here you are, being brave, healing, getting ready to go back home. That takes courage, just like David had." Marcus considered this, his young face serious. "I was scared in the ambulance. Is it still being brave if you're scared?" "That's the only time you can be brave," Gloria told him gently. "Courage isn't about not feeling fear. It's about doing what you need to do even when you are afraid." They talked for a while longer, and Gloria led them in a short prayer before promising to visit again the next day before his discharge. As she left the pediatric ward, she felt the familiar sense of fulfillment that had sustained her through decades of volunteer service. These connections with Harriet, with Marcus, with countless others over the years were the true purpose of her ministry. The clock in the main lobby read 9:55 a.m. Gloria took a deep breath and headed toward the administration wing for her meeting with Dr. Whitmore and the board. Whatever changes they wanted to discuss, she was confident that they could work together to ensure that the spiritual needs of patients continued to be met. She had no way of knowing that in less than an hour, she would be standing firm in that boardroom, fighting for the ministry that had become her life's purpose, about to be escorted from the hospital she had served faithfully for 40 years. As Gloria walked down the sterile corridor toward the boardroom, she passed framed photographs chronicling the hospital's history. In one from 1985, she stood beside Walter at the dedication of the new wing, a much younger Gloria with less gray in her hair, but the same determined set to her jaw. They had helped raise funds for that expansion, organizing church bake sales and community events. The hospital had been an integral part of their lives. Walter had been treated here when he had his first heart attack in 1992, and again for the second one in 2016 that eventually took him. All three of their children had been born here, and it was here that Gloria had found her calling, offering spiritual comfort to patients and families in need. When she reached the boardroom, Dr. Whitmore was already seated at the head of the table, surrounded by 8 board members, most of whom Gloria knew well. Dr. Patricia Washington, the chief of surgery, had been delivered by Gloria's midwife mother. Richard Townsend, the hospital's legal counsel, had gone to high school with Gloria's eldest daughter. Only 3 members were unfamiliar to her recent appointments who, like Dr. Whitmore, had come from outside the community. "Mrs. Stevens, thank you for joining us," Dr. Whitmore said, gesturing to an empty chair. "Please have a seat." Gloria nodded politely to the room and took her seat, placing her Bible on the table beside her. She noticed several board members avoiding her eyes, a sign that whatever was coming wouldn't be pleasant. "Mrs. Stevens," Dr. Whitmore began, leaning forward slightly, "you've been a fixture at Westside Memorial for many years." 42 years this November, Gloria confirmed, though I wasn't officially the volunteer chaplain until 1983. Before that, I just visited as a church representative. Dr. Whitmore nodded, a tight smile on his face. "Indeed, and your dedication has been noted by many. However, as part of our new modernization initiative, we're making some significant changes to all hospital operations, including our approach to spiritual care." He slid a glossy folder across the table toward her. On the cover was an architectural rendering of a sleek, modern, interfaith reflection space with minimalist design elements. "We're creating a new spiritual wellness department," he continued as Gloria opened the folder, "with certified interfaith chaplains who have master's degrees in divinity and specialized training in clinical pastoral education. They'll be providing spiritual support within a structured, professional framework that respects the diverse religious and cultural backgrounds of our patients." Gloria looked up from the brochure. "That sounds like a positive addition to the hospital's services." "It's not an addition, Mrs. Stevens," Dr. Whitmore clarified. "It's a replacement for the current volunteer chaplaincy program. The board has decided that all spiritual care should be provided by trained professionals who meet certain educational and certification requirements." The room fell silent as the implication became clear. Gloria looked around at the board members, noting the discomfort on several familiar faces. "I see," she said calmly. "And when does this change take effect?" "Immediately," Dr. Whitmore replied. "We've already hired 2 full-time chaplains who will begin next week. In the meantime, we'll be discontinuing the morning prayer gatherings and volunteer visitations." Gloria folded her hands on top of her Bible. "Dr. Whitmore, I've served this hospital and this community for over 4 decades. I know the families who come here. I've prayed with 3 generations of some families. With all due respect, a degree doesn't automatically create the kind of trust that takes years to build." Dr. Whitmore's smile never wavered. "We appreciate your service, Mrs. Stevens, truly. But healthcare is evolving, and spiritual care needs to evolve with it. Our new chaplains will be fully integrated into the medical team, participating in patient care conferences and treatment planning. They'll document their interactions in medical records and follow evidence-based protocols for spiritual assessment." "Protocols for spiritual assessment," Gloria repeated, trying to make sense of the clinical approach to something she had always seen as deeply personal and intuitive. "Yes, standardized approaches that have been validated in research studies." he explained with the confidence of someone who believed that everything of value could be quantified and measured. This is about bringing professionalism and consistency to all aspects of patient care. Gloria took a deep breath, centering herself before responding. Dr. Whitmore, I understand the value of education and training, but there's also value in community connection, in the relationships that have been built over decades. The people who come to morning prayers find comfort in the familiar, in seeing someone who knows their family history, who remembers their loved ones who passed in this very hospital. Dr. Washington shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Gloria has a point. Her presence here is meaningful to many long-time patients and community members. Precisely why we're offering Mrs. Stevens an honorary position, Dr. Whitmore countered smoothly. We'd like to recognize her years of service with a plaque in the new reflection space, and she's welcome to attend our annual volunteer recognition events. The condescension in his tone was subtle but unmistakable. Gloria was being offered a ceremonial pat on the head while being shown the door. What about my regular visitors? Gloria asked. Mrs. Johnson in oncology, young Marcus in pediatrics, dozens of others who look forward to prayer and scripture reading. The new chaplains will be making regular rounds to all departments, Dr. Whitmore assured her. No patient who desires spiritual support will go without it. Gloria nodded slowly, gathering her thoughts. When she spoke again, her voice was quiet but firm. Dr. Whitmore, I've served under 6 different hospital administrators. I've adapted to countless policy changes and hospital reorganizations. I've always been willing to work within new systems. Is there truly no place for community volunteers in your new spiritual care model? For the first time, Dr. Whitmore's professional facade showed a crack of impatience. Mrs. Stevens, the decision has been made. The board vote was unanimous. This isn't personal, it's about bringing all aspects of hospital operations up to current professional standards. Gloria looked around the table, meeting the eyes of each board member. Some looked away, unable to hold her gaze. Others offered apologetic smiles that did nothing to soften the blow. I see, Gloria said finally. Then it appears my service is no longer required. We'd like to invite you to a special recognition ceremony next month, Dr. Whitmore offered, already reaching for a folder containing what appeared to be the next agenda item. To properly honor your years of service. It was then that Gloria realized he had never expected any resistance. The meeting had been a formality, a courtesy notification rather than a discussion. In Dr. Whitmore's mind, the matter was already settled. We don't need your kind bringing all that religious nonsense into our hospital. The board's decision is final. The words escaped Dr. Whitmore's lips with unexpected harshness, revealing his true feelings about her ministry. My prayers have sustained this community for 40 years, Dr. Whitmore, and they will long after you've forgotten this conversation, Gloria replied, her voice steady and dignified. And that brings us back to where our story began, with Gloria standing firm in that boardroom, facing the end of a ministry that had defined much of her adult life. The security guard who arrived to escort her looked deeply uncomfortable with his assignment. Gloria recognized him as Tyrell Washington, Patricia's nephew, who had once been a squirming child in her Sunday school class. Mrs. Stevens, he said respectfully, unable to meet her eyes. I'm supposed to, It's all right, Tyrell, Gloria assured him, gathering her Bible and standing with dignity. You're just doing your job. As they walked through the hospital corridors toward the chaplain's office where Gloria kept a few personal belongings, word of what was happening spread quickly among the staff. Nurses, orderlies, and technicians emerged from rooms and stations, their faces registering shock and dismay. Is it true, Mrs. Stevens? Nurse Martinez asked, catching up to them near the elevators. They're really letting you go? Gloria patted the younger woman's arm. It seems my services are being professionalized, she said, managing a small smile. But don't you worry about me. The Lord's work doesn't begin or end within these walls. By the time they reached the small office that Gloria had used for decades, a crowd had gathered in the hallway. Hospital staff, patients who were mobile enough to leave their rooms, family members who had been coming to morning prayers for years, all watching in disbelief as Gloria was essentially being removed from the place that had been her second home. The office itself was sparse. Gloria had never been one for extravagance. A small desk with a lamp, a bookshelf filled with devotionals and scripture references, and a wall of framed photographs documenting her years of service. Gloria carefully packed her Bible, prayer journal, and a few personal items into a canvas tote bag. As she took down the photographs, each one triggered a flood of memories. the Christmas when she and other volunteers had decorated every patient's room with handmade ornaments, the day the hospital had honored Walter for donating his carpentry skills to build shelves for the children's ward, the staff picnic of 1997, where Gloria's potato salad had won the coveted blue ribbon. Tyrell stood awkwardly by the door, clearly distressed by his role in this situation. "Mrs. Stevens, I'm so sorry about this. It's not right what they're doing." "Everything happens for a reason, Tyrell," Gloria replied, though her heart was heavy. "Sometimes we don't understand the Lord's plan right away." When Gloria emerged from the office with her belongings, the crowd in the hallway had grown. To her surprise, they formed a kind of honor guard, lining the corridor all the way to the main entrance. As she walked past, many reached out to touch her arm or shoulder, murmuring thanks and good wishes. At the hospital entrance, Gloria turned to face the gathered crowd. She hadn't planned to say anything, but looking at their faces, many with tears in their eyes, she felt compelled to offer a final word. "For 42 years, I've been blessed to share in your joys and sorrows within these walls," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the hushed space. "I've held your hands through loss and celebrated with you through healing. And while it seems my time here has come to an end, the prayers don't stop. The love doesn't stop. And the God who watches over all of us certainly doesn't stop." She paused, looking at the faces before her faces that represented the community she had served her entire adult life. "Remember what I always say at the end of morning prayers. May the God who heals bodies and spirits walk with you today. May you see his hand in the kindness of strangers and the skill of healers. And may you never forget that you are loved beyond measure by the Creator who knows every hair on your head. Amen." "Amen," came the response, echoing through the lobby. With that, Gloria walked out of the hospital doors, her head held high despite the tears that threatened to spill. She hadn't expected this day to end her 4 decades of service, but she was determined to face it with the same grace and faith that had guided her life. "Wait," a voice called from behind her. Gloria turned to see Dr. Patricia Washington hurrying down the sidewalk, her white coat flapping in the breeze. "Patricia," Gloria acknowledged, waiting for the doctor to catch up. Dr. Washington was slightly out of breath when she reached Gloria. "I need you to know that this wasn't what the board originally intended. Whitmore presented it as a professionalization of services, not a complete removal of community involvement. Several of us only realized the full implications today." Gloria studied the younger woman's face, noting the genuine distress there. "It's done now, Patricia." "It doesn't have to be," Dr. Washington insisted. "I've already spoken with Richard and 2 other board members. We're calling for an emergency meeting to revisit this decision." Gloria shook her head. "I appreciate that truly, but I won't be a source of division for the hospital. This community needs Westside Memorial to be focused on healing, not internal politics. But what they did was wrong," Dr. Washington argued. "And after everything you've done for this place, what I've done was never for the hospital as an institution," Gloria interrupted gently. "It was for the people, and there are many ways to serve people." Dr. Washington looked at her with a mixture of admiration and frustration. "You're a better person than I am, Gloria Stevens. If it were me, I'd be raising holy hell right about now." That brought a small smile to Gloria's face. "Well, we all serve in our own way. Yours involves exceptional surgical skills and apparently a willingness to challenge the administration when necessary." The bus appeared around the corner, and Gloria reached for her senior transit pass in her purse. "This isn't over," Dr. Washington promised as Gloria prepared to board the bus. "Everything is in God's hands," Gloria replied. "Always has been." The ride home gave Gloria time to reflect. By nature, she wasn't one to dwell on injustice or nurse grievances. Her faith had taught her to look forward, not backward. But she couldn't deny the ache in her heart, not just for herself, but for the patients and families who had come to rely on her presence. Mrs. Johnson, battling cancer for the 2nd time, who had made Gloria promise to bring another muffin tomorrow. Marcus, the young boy with the broken leg, who was expecting to hear another Bible story before his discharge. Dozens of regular attendees at morning prayers who found comfort in the familiar rhythms of Gloria's spiritual guidance. As the bus turned onto her street, Gloria squared her shoulders. This wasn't the time for self-pity. She needed to figure out what came next, how to continue serving her community even without the hospital as her base of operations. The house was empty when she arrived home. Denise would be at the bank until late afternoon, and Jason had classes all day. Gloria was grateful for the solitude, needing time to process before explaining to her family what had happened. She placed her bag on the kitchen table and filled the kettle for tea, a ritual that had comforted her through many difficult days. While waiting for the water to boil, she found herself drawn to the family Bible that had occupied a place of honor in the living room since she and Walter had received it as a wedding gift in 1972. Inside the cover was a family tree, carefully maintained through the years. Gloria traced her finger over Walter's name, connected to hers by a line that represented over 4 decades of marriage. Below them, their 3 children, Michael, Denise, and Ruth, and below Denise, Jason's name written in Gloria's careful script when he was born 18 years ago. "What would you advise, Walter?" she whispered, imagining her late husband's response. Walter had always been her sounding board, the practical counterpart to her spiritual nature. He'd been gone 7 years now, but in moments of uncertainty, she still found herself seeking his counsel. The kettle whistled, calling her back to the kitchen. As she prepared her tea, 2 sugars, a splash of milk, just as she had taken it for 50 years, Gloria's mind drifted to what came next. She had built her daily routine around the hospital for so long that its absence left a gaping void. The ringing of the telephone interrupted her thoughts. Gloria wasn't surprised to see Mrs. Johnson's daughter's number on the caller ID. "Hello, Karen," she answered, preparing herself for the conversation. "Gloria," Karen Johnson's voice was tight with anger. "Mom just told me what happened at the hospital. How could they do this, after all these years?" "Institutions change, dear," Gloria replied, striving to keep her own disappointment from her voice. "Sometimes people get left behind in the process." "Mom is devastated," Karen continued. "She said seeing you every day was the only thing making this round of chemo bearable. Those morning prayers meant everything to her." Gloria closed her eyes, feeling the weight of her absence already affecting those she cared about. "I promised your mother I'd be back tomorrow with a muffin. Dr. Whitmore may have revoked my official status, but he can't stop me from being a visitor like any other family member." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Actually, he can. Mom says they've implemented a new visitor policy effective immediately. Family only with special visitor passes. They're saying it's for patient security, but the timing is pretty suspicious." The news hit Gloria like a physical blow. Not only had her ministry been terminated, but she was being deliberately prevented from even visiting as a friend. Dr. Whitmore had been thorough in his removal of her presence from the hospital. "I see," Gloria said carefully, unwilling to let Karen hear the hurt in her voice. "Then we'll have to find another way. Your mother is in my prayers regardless of whether I can be physically present with her." "It's not fair, Gloria," Karen's voice cracked with emotion. "Not after everything you've done for this community." "Life rarely deals in fairness, child," Gloria replied with the wisdom of her 72 years. "But it always deals in possibilities. We just have to look for them." After ending the call, Gloria sat at her kitchen table, hands wrapped around her cooling tea. The afternoon stretched before her, hours that would normally have been filled with hospital visits now empty and unstructured. She found herself uncharacteristically at a loss, adrift without the anchor of her long-established routine. The sound of the front door opening broke into her thoughts. "Grandma, you home?" Jason's voice called from the entryway. Gloria quickly composed herself, not wanting her grandson to see her distress. "In the kitchen, baby." Jason appeared in the doorway, his backpack slung over one shoulder. His expression shifted from casual to concerned as he took in the sight of his grandmother sitting alone with her untouched tea. "Grandma, what's wrong? Why are you home so early?" Gloria managed a smile. "I had an unexpected change of plans today. How were your classes?" Jason dropped his backpack and took the seat across from her, clearly not fooled by her attempt to redirect the conversation. "What happened? Is it Mrs. Johnson? Did she take a turn for the worse?" "No, nothing like that," Gloria assured him. "It seems that Westside Memorial is modernizing their approach to spiritual care. My volunteer position has been eliminated." Jason's expression darkened. "They fired you after 40 years? "Not fired exactly. Volunteer positions don't work that way. Let's just say my services are no longer required." "That's bull," Jason caught himself, remembering his grandmother's feelings about strong language. "That's ridiculous. Everyone at that hospital loves you. Half the staff calls you Mama Gloria behind your back. Did you know that?" Gloria hadn't known, and the revelation brought unexpected tears to her eyes. She blinked them away quickly, not wanting to burden her grandson with her emotions. But Jason was observant, a quality that would serve him well as a doctor someday. "They hurt you, didn't they? This is really bothering you." Gloria sighed, seeing no point in pretense with this young man who knew her so well. "Yes, it hurts. Not so much for myself, but for the people I've been serving. Mrs. Johnson was counting on my visits. Young Marcus was expecting another story. The morning prayer group." Her voice trailed off. Jason reached across the table to cover his grandmother's hand with his own. His palm was larger than hers now, though she remembered when it was tiny enough to be completely enveloped by her own. "So what are you going to do?" he asked with the simple directness of youth. Gloria looked at her grandson, surprised by the question. She had been so focused on what had been taken from her that she hadn't fully considered what came next. But Jason's question assumed that she would do something, that this setback was a redirect, not an endpoint. "I'm not entirely sure yet," she admitted. "But you're right to ask. The Lord doesn't close one door without opening another." "I just need to find that open door." Jason nodded thoughtfully. "You know, we were just discussing community health initiatives in my public health class yesterday. The professor was saying how healthcare is moving beyond hospital walls, trying to reach people where they are." "Is that so?" Gloria said, her interest piqued. "Yeah. Like, instead of waiting for people to get sick enough to come to the hospital, healthcare providers are going into communities, senior centers, schools, churches, to provide education, screenings, that kind of thing." Jason's eyes lit up with the enthusiasm of a student connecting classroom theory to real-world application. "Maybe there's a way for you to do something similar with your ministry." Gloria felt a small spark of inspiration at her grandson's words. "You might be onto something there, Jason. My calling has never been limited to that hospital. It's about serving people wherever they may be." The front door opened again, and Denise's voice called out, "Hello, anyone home?" "In the kitchen, Mom," Jason replied. Denise appeared moments later, still in her bank attire but with her heels already removed, her first act upon coming home each day. She stopped short at the sight of Gloria. "Mama, what are you doing home?" "I thought you had hospital visits all afternoon." Her expression quickly shifted to concern. "Is everything okay?" Gloria exchanged a glance with Jason before answering. "I've had an unexpected change in my situation, baby. Dr. Whitmore and the board have decided to professionalize spiritual care at the hospital. My volunteer position has been eliminated." "What?" Denise's professional composure cracked, revealing the fierce protectiveness she had always felt toward her mother. "They can't do that, not after all these years." "Apparently they can and they have," Gloria replied calmly, "but Jason and I were just discussing new possibilities." Denise set her purse down with more force than necessary. "This is outrageous. I have half a mind to go down there and give that Dr. Whitmore a piece of my mind." "You'll do no such thing," Gloria said firmly. "I won't have you jeopardizing your professional reputation over this. Besides, anger won't solve anything." "Grandma's right, Mom," Jason interjected. "Getting mad won't change their decision, but maybe we can help her find a new way to continue her ministry." Denise took a deep breath, visibly trying to calm herself. "You're both right, of course. I just hate to see you treated this way, Mama. It's not fair after everything you've given to that place." "Life isn't about fairness," Gloria reminded her. "It's about purpose, and my purpose hasn't changed just because my location has." The three of them sat at the kitchen table, the conversation gradually shifting from indignation over the hospital's decision to brainstorming about new opportunities. Denise mentioned that the senior center, where she volunteered on weekends, had been looking for someone to lead their spiritual wellness program. Jason suggested that some of his pre-med classmates might benefit from Gloria's perspective on compassionate care. As they talked, Gloria felt the heavy weight of the morning's events begin to lift slightly. Her ministry had never been about the hospital itself. It had been about the people she served. And people were everywhere, not just within those institutional walls. The ringing of the telephone interrupted their discussion. Denise rose to answer it, returning moments later with a puzzled expression. "It's for you, Mama. Someone named Rebecca Turner. She says she's calling about what happened at the hospital today." Gloria took the phone, curious. The name was vaguely familiar, but she couldn't immediately place it. "Hello, this is Gloria Stevens." "Mrs. Stevens, you probably don't remember me," the woman on the other line began. "My name is Rebecca Turner. My son Tommy was in Westside Memorial 10 years ago after a car accident. You visited him every day for 3 months while he was in a coma." The memory surfaced immediately. Thomas Turner, just 16 when a drunk driver had hit his car, leaving him with severe head injuries. The doctors had been pessimistic about his chances, but his mother had refused to give up hope. "Of course I remember Tommy," Gloria replied warmly. "How is he doing?" "He's wonderful," Rebecca said, her voice thick with emotion. "He graduated college last year. He's teaching special education now, and he still has that children's Bible you gave him. Says it got him through the darkest time in his life." Gloria smiled at the update. "I'm so glad to hear he's doing well. That boy had fight in him even when he was unconscious. I could feel it." "Mrs. Stevens, I heard about what happened at the hospital today," Rebecca continued. "Word travels fast in this community. I want you to know that I'm not the only one who's upset about it." There are dozens of families like mine who owe you a debt we can never repay. You don't owe me anything, Gloria assured her. It was my privilege to be there for your family. Well, we'd like to do something to show our appreciation, and maybe to give you a new platform for your ministry. Rebecca's tone shifted from emotional to determined. I work at WRCB Radio now. We've been looking for someone to host a morning spirituality segment, just 15 minutes of inspiration, prayer, maybe some wisdom for the day. When I heard what happened at the hospital, I immediately thought of you. Gloria was momentarily speechless, taken aback by the unexpected offer. A radio program? I've never done anything like that. It would be very simple, Rebecca assured her. Just you sharing the same kind of morning prayers and reflections you've been doing at the hospital all these years, but reaching a much wider audience. Our station broadcasts to 3 counties. I'd need to pray on this, Gloria replied, her mind racing with the possibility. It's very different from the personal ministry I'm accustomed to. Of course, take all the time you need, Rebecca said. But I want you to know that your voice and your prayers have been a source of strength for more people than you realize. This could be a way to continue that work on an even larger scale. After ending the call, Gloria shared the unexpected opportunity with Denise and Jason, who both reacted with enthusiasm. Grandma, that would be amazing, Jason exclaimed. You could reach thousands of people instead of just those at the hospital. Denise nodded in agreement. It's perfect, Mama, a whole new ministry without having to deal with hospital administrators or institutional politics. Gloria appreciated their support but felt the need for caution. It's a very different approach. At the hospital, I could see people's faces, hold their hands, respond to their specific needs. Radio is more distant. But it doesn't have to be your only ministry, Jason pointed out. You could do the radio program and still find ways to connect with people personally. As they continued discussing possibilities, more calls began coming in. Word of Gloria's dismissal from the hospital had spread through the community like wildfire, and people were reaching out, some to express outrage, others to offer support, and several with invitations similar to Rebecca's. Pastor Williams from New Covenant Church called to invite Gloria to lead a new community outreach program. The director of a local nursing home asked if she would consider bringing her morning prayers there. Even the owner of the neighborhood cafe, where Gloria occasionally had lunch, suggested she might use their back room for community gatherings. By evening, what had begun as a day of loss and uncertainty had transformed into something else entirely. A day of new beginnings, unexpected opportunities, and a profound reminder that Gloria's ministry had never been defined by the walls of Westside Memorial. As they prepared dinner together, something they did as a family most evenings, Denise watched her mother with a mixture of admiration and concern. Are you really okay, Mama? It's all right if you're not. That was a lot to process in one day. Gloria paused in her methodical chopping of onions. I'm sad, of course. Change is never easy, especially at my age, but I'm also curious about what comes next. The Lord has always had a plan for me, even when I couldn't see it clearly. Jason looked up from setting the table. So what are you going to do about all these offers? Gloria smiled at her grandson. I'm going to pray about them tonight. By morning, I expect I'll have some clarity. Just don't take on too much, Denise cautioned. You're 72, not 42. Age is just a number, child. My spirit feels about 35 most days. Gloria winked at her daughter. Besides, idle hands do the devil's work, as your father used to say. The evening passed in the comfortable rhythm of family dinner, dishes, and quiet conversation. Gloria retired to her room earlier than usual, feeling the emotional weight of the day settling into physical exhaustion. In the privacy of her bedroom, the same room she had shared with Walter for nearly 40 years, Gloria knelt beside her bed as she had done every night since childhood. Her prayers were simple but heartfelt, asking not for specific outcomes, but for wisdom to recognize the path she was meant to follow. When she finally slipped under the covers, Gloria felt a sense of peace that had eluded her earlier in the day. Whatever came next, she knew she wouldn't face it alone. She had her family, her community, and most importantly, her unwavering faith that all things worked together for good, even when the path forward wasn't immediately clear. The next morning, Gloria woke before dawn as she always did. The habit of early rising had been ingrained in her for decades, originally born of necessity when raising 3 children while Walter worked early shifts at the electric company. Now, it was simply part of who she was. These quiet morning hours her time for reflection and preparation for the day ahead. For a brief moment as consciousness returned, Gloria felt the familiar anticipation of her hospital routine. Then the memory of yesterday's events washed over her, bringing with it a complex mixture of emotions: sadness, indignation, uncertainty, but also a surprising sense of possibility. Instead of heading straight to the kitchen to bake muffins as she normally would, Gloria took her time getting dressed. She selected her favorite blue dress, the one Walter had always said brought out the warmth in her eyes, and the pearl earrings that had been her mother's. When she emerged from her bedroom, she was surprised to find both Denise and Jason already up and in the kitchen. The smell of coffee and frying bacon filled the air. "Well, this is a pleasant surprise," Gloria remarked. "What has you two up at this hour?" Denise turned from the stove, spatula in hand. "We thought you might appreciate not having to cook this morning. You've made breakfast for us more times than we can count. Time for us to return the favor." Jason was setting the table, carefully placing Gloria's favorite floral pattern plates, the ones usually reserved for Sunday dinner. "Plus, we wanted to hear what you decided about all those offers." Gloria took a seat at the table, touched by their thoughtfulness. "I've been thinking and praying about it all night, and I believe I know what I'm meant to do next." Mother and grandson paused in their preparations, giving Gloria their full attention. "I'm going to accept Rebecca's offer to do the morning radio program," Gloria began. "It won't be the same as being physically present with people, but it will allow me to continue offering morning prayers and spiritual guidance to the community, including the patients and staff at Westside Memorial who might be listening." Denise nodded approvingly. "I think that's a wise choice, Mama. But that's just the beginning," Gloria continued. "Pastor Williams's community outreach program also feels like something I'm called to be part of. And the nursing home. Well, there are souls there who need connection and comfort, much like the patients at the hospital." Jason's brow furrowed slightly. "That sounds like a lot, Grandma. Are you sure you're not taking on too much?" Gloria smiled at her grandson's concern. "I won't be doing everything at once, baby. The radio program would be just 15 minutes each morning. The nursing home needs someone once a week, and Pastor Williams and I agreed that I could shape the outreach program to fit my schedule and abilities." "What about the cafe owner's offer?" Denise asked, returning to finish cooking the eggs. "That's actually the part I'm most excited about," Gloria admitted. "Carl has offered the back room of the cafe for a daily morning gathering, very similar to what I used to do at the hospital. People can come for prayer, conversation, maybe some spiritual guidance. No institutional constraints, no administrative approval needed. Just people coming together in faith and community." As they ate breakfast together, they discussed the logistics of Gloria's new ministry path. Jason offered to drive her to the radio station for her first few broadcasts until she felt comfortable with the bus route. Denise suggested that her mother consider writing down some of her most requested prayers and devotionals, perhaps even thinking about creating a small book someday. "You know," Jason said thoughtfully, "what happened at the hospital might end up being a blessing in disguise. Your ministry was confined to that one building before. Now it can spread throughout the whole community." Gloria reached out to squeeze her grandson's hand. "That's exactly right, Jason. God's work isn't limited to any single location. Sometimes we need to be reminded of that in uncomfortable ways." After breakfast, as Denise prepared for work and Jason for his classes, Gloria made a phone call to Rebecca Turner to accept the radio position. Then she called Pastor Williams, the nursing home director, and finally Carl at the cafe to work out the details of her new commitments. By mid-morning, Gloria found herself with a completely restructured ministry, one that would potentially reach far more people than her hospital work ever had. The initial sting of rejection from the hospital board had faded, replaced by a growing excitement about the new paths opening before her. There was, however, one piece of unfinished business that weighed on her mind. She had promised Mrs. Johnson she would return with another muffin, and while she couldn't enter the hospital as a volunteer anymore, she wasn't ready to break that promise. After Denise and Jason had left, Gloria went to the kitchen and began mixing the ingredients for her sweet potato pecan muffins. The familiar ritual of measuring, mixing, and baking brought comfort, a reminder that some things remained constant even as others changed dramatically. When the muffins were cooled and packed carefully in a container, Gloria put on her sweater and headed for the bus stop. Her destination wasn't the hospital itself, but the small park across the street where hospital patients who were well enough were sometimes taken to enjoy fresh air and sunshine. It was a beautiful autumn day, the kind that showcased the South at its best: warm sunshine, a gentle breeze, and trees beginning to hint at the color changes to come. Gloria found a bench with a good view of the hospital entrance and settled in to wait. She had called Corinne earlier to arrange for Mrs. Johnson to be wheeled out to the park if she felt up to it. As she waited, Gloria observed the comings and goings at the hospital entrance. Staff arriving for shift changes, visitors carrying flowers and gift bags, ambulances occasionally pulling up with new patients. For 4 decades, she had been part of that daily rhythm. Now she watched from the outside like an audience member rather than part of the cast. "Gloria Stevens, you are a sight for sore eyes," came a familiar voice. Gloria turned to see Harriet Johnson being pushed in a wheelchair by her daughter Corinne. Despite the evident fatigue on her face, Harriet's eyes sparkled with mischief. "I hear you've been causing trouble," Harriet continued as Corinne positioned the wheelchair beside Gloria's bench. "Got yourself thrown out of the hospital at your age. Never thought you had it in you." Gloria laughed, the sound genuine and unrehearsed. "I didn't get thrown out, I was professionally replaced." "Same difference," Harriet waved dismissively. "Bunch of fools, if you ask me. That Whitmore wouldn't know real ministry if it bit him on his fancy behind." "Mother," Corinne admonished, though she was clearly fighting a smile. "Oh, hush. When you get to my age and are staring down cancer for the second time, you earn the right to speak your mind." Harriet turned back to Gloria. "Now, where's that muffin you promised me?" Gloria produced the container, opening it to reveal a perfectly baked sweet potato pecan muffin. "Fresh this morning, just for you." As Harriet savored her muffin, Gloria shared her plans for her new ministry opportunities. Corinne stood nearby, giving the 2 old friends some privacy while remaining within earshot in case her mother needed anything. "Radio, huh?" Harriet mused after Gloria had explained her new direction. "Walter would be proud." "Always said you had a voice that could soothe troubled waters." Gloria smiled at the memory. "He did say that, didn't he? I'd almost forgot." "I haven't," Harriet said simply. "I remember all sorts of things these days, things from decades ago that I thought I'd forgot. Maybe that's what getting close to the end does for you, brings the full circle of your life into clearer focus." Gloria reached out to take her friend's hand. "You're not at the end yet, Harriet Johnson. You've got fight left in you." "Maybe so," Harriet conceded. "But if not, I'm at peace with it. James is waiting, and I've had a good long run." She took another bite of her muffin. "These are still the best muffins in 3 counties, by the way. Promise you'll make them for my funeral reception." "Harriet." "What? It's practical planning," Harriet insisted, unrepentant. "Besides, I'm not going anywhere until I see what becomes of this new ministry of yours. The Lord clearly has more work for you to do." They sat together in the autumn sunshine, 2 women in their 70s who had witnessed the civil rights movement, survived the turbulent 60s, raised children through the 70s and 80s, and now found themselves navigating the complexities of aging in a rapidly changing world. After about half an hour, Corinne gently suggested it was time for her mother to return to her room. "The nurse said not to overdo it, Mom. You had chemo yesterday." Harriet sighed but nodded in acquiescence. "Fine, fine." "Hospital prisons and their schedules." She turned to Gloria. "You'll come visit me here again until they let me go home." "Wild horses couldn't keep me away," Gloria promised, repeating the words she had spoken just a day earlier, though it felt like a lifetime had passed since then. As Corinne prepared to wheel her mother back into the hospital, a familiar figure emerged from the main entrance. Dr. Whitmore, his attention focused on a tablet in his hands, nearly collided with them on the sidewalk. "Oh, excuse me, Mrs. Johnson," he said automatically, glancing up briefly. Then his gaze shifted to Gloria and his expression tightened. "Mrs. Stevens, I wasn't aware you were visiting today." "Just meeting a friend in the park, Dr. Whitmore," Gloria replied pleasantly. "Last I checked, the park was still public property." Dr. Whitmore seemed about to say something, then apparently thought better of it. With a curt nod, he continued on his way toward the parking lot. "That man has a stick so far up his," Harriet began. "Mother," Corinne interrupted again, more forcefully this time. Gloria couldn't help but laugh. "Some things never change, do they, Harriet? You've been shocking people with that mouth of yours since 1965. Harriet grinned, the expression making her look decades younger. "Got to keep my reputation intact. Now you take care of yourself, Gloria Stevens, and keep me updated on this radio business. I'll be listening every morning." After saying their goodbyes, Gloria watched as Corinne wheeled Harriet back into the hospital. She felt a momentary pang, knowing she couldn't follow her friend inside, couldn't visit the other patients who had become part of her extended family over the years. But as she stood to catch her bus, Gloria was surprised to realize that the sharp sense of loss she had felt yesterday had already begun to transform into something else, a feeling of expansion rather than diminishment. Perhaps Jason had been right. Perhaps this upheaval would ultimately lead to something greater than what had been before. On the bus ride home, Gloria began jotting notes in her prayer journal ideas for her first radio broadcast, thoughts about the community outreach program, names of people she wanted to include in her prayers. By the time she reached her stop, several pages were filled with her neat, precise handwriting. The next 2 weeks passed in a whirlwind of activity as Gloria established the framework for her new ministries. Her first radio broadcast was scheduled for Monday morning, giving her the weekend to prepare. Pastor Williams had already introduced her to the community outreach team, and they had mapped out a plan for reaching underserved areas of the neighborhood. The nursing home visit was set for Wednesday afternoons, and Carl had prepared the back room of his cafe for daily morning gatherings starting the following week. On Sunday evening, as Gloria reviewed her notes for the radio broadcast one final time, she felt a flutter of nerves. Speaking to a live audience she could see was one thing, speaking into a microphone for an unseen audience of potentially thousands was quite another. "You'll be wonderful, Mama," Denise assured her, noticing her mother's unusual restlessness. "Just speak from the heart like you always do." "What if I freeze up?" Gloria worried, uncharacteristically doubtful. "What if I say the wrong thing?" "Once it's on the radio, you can't take it back." Jason looked up from his textbook with a grin. "Grandma, I've never once heard you be at a loss for words, especially when it comes to matters of faith. You've been preparing for this your entire life." Gloria smiled at her grandson's confidence in her. "I suppose you're right. Still, it's different from what I'm used to." "Different, but not necessarily harder," Denise pointed out. "Think of all the people you'll be able to reach now. People who might never have come to the hospital for morning prayers, but who will hear you on their way to work, or while getting their kids ready for school." Gloria nodded, drawing strength from her family's support. "Well, the Lord didn't bring me this far to leave me now. Whatever happens tomorrow, I'll trust that it's part of the plan." The next morning, Jason drove Gloria to the radio station, where Rebecca Turner was waiting to show her around and explain the simple equipment she would be using. The studio was smaller than Gloria had imagined, just a small room with a table, microphone, and headphones. "It's very simple," Rebecca assured her. "Just talk into the microphone as if you were speaking to one person. Don't worry about the thousands who might be listening. Just focus on connecting with one soul who needs to hear your words today." That advice resonated with Gloria. It was, after all, how she had approached her hospital ministry. One person at a time, one need at a time, one prayer at a time. As the on-air light illuminated and Rebecca gave her the signal to begin, Gloria took a deep breath and spoke into the microphone. "Good morning, friends. This is Gloria Stevens, coming to you with a word of prayer and encouragement to start your day. For over 40 years, I offered morning prayers at Westside Memorial Hospital. Today, I'm blessed to bring those same prayers to you, wherever you may be." Her initial nervousness faded as she fell into the familiar rhythm of her morning devotional. She read a brief scripture passage, offered reflections on finding strength in difficult times, and concluded with the same blessing she had used at the hospital for decades. "May the God who heals bodies and spirits walk with you today. May you see his hand in the kindness of strangers and the skill of healers. And may you never forget that you are loved beyond measure by the Creator who knows every hair on your head. Amen." When the on-air light went off, indicating the end of her segment, Gloria felt a profound sense of fulfillment. It had been different from her hospital ministry, yes, but no less meaningful. And perhaps, as Denise had suggested, she was now reaching people who would never have come to the hospital for morning prayers. Rebecca appeared in the studio, beaming. "That was perfect, Mrs. Stevens. Absolutely perfect. The phone lines are lighting up with positive responses already." Over the next few days, Gloria settled into her new routine. Mornings at the radio station, followed by the gathering at Carl's Cafe, which had quickly attracted many of the regular attendees from her hospital prayer group along with new faces. Wednesday afternoons at the nursing home, where the residents eagerly awaited her visits. And planning sessions with Pastor Williams for the community outreach program. The radio program, in particular, seemed to be reaching far beyond what Gloria had anticipated. By the end of the first week, the station had received hundreds of calls and letters from listeners who found comfort and inspiration in Gloria's morning devotionals. Some were former patients or families she had ministered to at the hospital. Others were completely new to her people from surrounding counties who had never set foot in Westside Memorial, but who connected with the authentic faith and wisdom in her words. One evening, about 3 weeks after her first broadcast, Gloria was preparing dinner when the doorbell rang. Denise answered it and returned to the kitchen with a puzzled expression. "Mama, there's someone here to see you. Says his name is Dr. Washington, from the hospital board." Gloria wiped her hands on her apron. Dr. Marcus Washington, Patricia's husband? Denise nodded. Should I tell him you're busy? No, no, please invite him in. Gloria smoothed her hair reflexively. Offer him some tea. Dr. Marcus Washington was a distinguished cardiologist who had been on the hospital board for over a decade. Gloria had known him professionally for years, though they had never been particularly close. Gloria, he greeted her as he entered the kitchen. Thank you for seeing me without notice. I hope I'm not interrupting your dinner preparations. Not at all, Gloria assured him, gesturing for him to take a seat at the kitchen table. What brings you here, Dr. Washington? Marcus accepted the tea Denise offered before she discreetly left them alone. I'll get right to the point. The hospital is in crisis. Gloria raised an eyebrow. What sort of crisis? A public relations crisis, for one, Marcus explained. Since word got out about your departure, we've had an overwhelming negative response from the community. Donations are down. Several long-time volunteers have resigned in protest. Even some of the staff have been vocal about their disapproval. Gloria said nothing, waiting for him to continue. But there's a more serious issue, Marcus went on. Patient satisfaction scores have plummeted. Family members are complaining about the lack of spiritual support. The new chaplains Whitmore hired are qualified on paper, but they don't have the community connections you built over decades. They're strangers trying to provide comfort in some of the most vulnerable moments of people's lives. Gloria nodded thoughtfully. That connection takes time to build. It can't be manufactured or credentialed. Exactly, Marcus agreed emphatically. But Whitmore doesn't see it that way. He's insisting that the professional model just needs time to be properly implemented. And you disagree? Gloria prompted. Marcus sighed heavily. Several of us on the board disagree. Patricia has been particularly vocal about it, but Whitmore has the chairman's support, and for now that's enough to maintain the current course. Gloria considered this information. Dr. Washington, I appreciate you sharing this with me, but I'm not sure why you've come. What is it you're hoping I can do? Marcus leaned forward slightly. I've been listening to your radio program, Gloria. Many of us at the hospital have, and we've heard about the gathering at Carl's Cafe. You're doing essentially the same ministry you did at the hospital, but now you're reaching even more people. The Lord works in mysterious ways, Gloria acknowledged with a small smile. Indeed, Marcus agreed. Here's my proposal. Westside Memorial would like to sponsor your radio program, officially, with proper compensation for your time and service. Gloria was taken aback by the unexpected offer. Sponsor my program? But Dr. Whitmore was quite clear about wanting to professionalize spiritual care. This wouldn't change the hospital's internal chaplaincy program, Marcus clarified. At least not immediately, but it would allow the hospital to maintain a connection to your ministry and show the community that we still value the spiritual component you bring. Gloria studied the doctor's face, noting the sincerity in his expression. And what does Dr. Whitmore think of this proposal? Marcus had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable. He's not entirely on board yet, but the majority of the board is in favor, and we're confident he'll come around when he sees the positive impact on community relations. Gloria took a sip of her tea, considering the offer. On one hand, it felt like vindication, an acknowledgement that her ministry had real value despite lacking formal credentials. On the other hand, she was wary of becoming embroiled in hospital politics or being used as a public relations tool. I appreciate the offer, Dr. Washington, but I need to pray about this before giving you an answer. Marcus nodded respectfully. Of course, take all the time you need. He reached into his jacket pocket and produced a folded document. Here's a formal outline of the proposal, including the financial compensation we're offering. Please look it over and let us know your decision. After Marcus left, Gloria sat at the kitchen table, the proposal untouched beside her teacup. Denise reappeared, curiosity evident on her face. What was that about, Mama? Gloria explained the hospital's offer, watching as her daughter's expression shifted from surprise to cautious approval. It sounds like they're admitting they made a mistake, Denise observed, without actually saying the words. Something like that, Gloria agreed. Though I suspect it's more about community perception than a genuine change of heart, at least for Dr. Whitmore. Are you going to accept? Denise asked. Gloria shook her head slightly. I'm not sure yet. On the surface, it seems like a good opportunity, but I don't want to be just a public relations solution for the hospital. My ministry has always been about genuine service, not institutional image. Later that evening, after dinner had been cleared away and Denise had gone to help Jason with a challenging assignment, Gloria sat in her favorite armchair with her Bible and the hospital's proposal. She read through the document carefully, noting that it offered fair compensation for her radio program, but made no mention of restoring her volunteer status at the hospital itself. The telephone rang, interrupting her thoughts. Gloria was surprised to hear Dr. Patricia Washington's voice on the line. "Gloria, I understand my husband visited you today with our proposal," Patricia began without preamble. "I wanted to call personally to add some context that Marcus might not have shared." "I'm listening," Gloria replied. "This isn't just about public relations," Patricia assured her. "Though I won't deny that's part of it for some board members. For many of us, including myself, it's about recognizing that we made a serious error in judgment. Your ministry brought something to our hospital that can't be replaced with professional credentials alone." Gloria appreciated the honesty. "Thank you for saying that, Patricia." "There's more," Patricia continued. "Whitmore's professional approach isn't working. The new chaplains are trying their best, but they're overwhelmed and struggling to connect with patients. Staff morale is down because that sense of community you fostered is gone. And frankly, those morning prayers were as much for the staff as for the patients and families. I've missed all of you as well," Gloria admitted, "but I'm not sure that sponsoring my radio program addresses those issues." There was a pause before Patricia responded. "The radio program sponsorship is just the first step, Gloria. Several of us on the board see it as a way to bring you back into the hospital community gradually. Our hope is that eventually we can create a hybrid model, professional chaplains working alongside community volunteers like yourself, each bringing their unique strengths to spiritual care." Now Gloria understood. The proposal wasn't just about a radio program. It was a strategic first move in a larger plan to reshape the hospital's approach to spiritual care, pushing back against Whitmore's exclusively professional model. "That's a more complex situation than Marcus presented," Gloria observed. "You're asking me to be part of what amounts to an internal policy dispute." "I suppose we are," Patricia acknowledged, "but it's a dispute about something that matters deeply to the patients, to the staff, and to the community, and it's a dispute we believe is aligned with your own values and calling." After ending the call, Gloria spent time in prayer, seeking wisdom about the path forward. The prospect of being caught between hospital factions didn't appeal to her. Yet she couldn't deny that her heart still held a special place for the Westside Memorial community, the patients, families, and staff she had served for so many years. By morning, Gloria had reached a decision. After her radio broadcast, she called Dr. Marcus Washington and requested a meeting, not at her home this time, but at Carl's cafe during the morning gathering. If the hospital wanted to reconnect with her ministry, they should see it in action in its new setting. The next day, both Dr. Marcus Washington and Dr. Patricia Washington arrived at the cafe, slightly uncomfortable in the informal setting but clearly intent on securing Gloria's agreement. They found the back room filled with people, some familiar faces from the hospital, others new to Gloria's ministry. The gathering had just concluded, but many lingered, enjoying coffee and conversation. Gloria led the doctors to a quiet corner table. "I've considered your proposal," she began, "and I have a counteroffer." The Washingtons exchanged a glance, clearly not having expected negotiation. "I'm willing to accept the hospital's sponsorship of the radio program," Gloria continued, "but with several conditions. First, the content remains entirely at my discretion. No hospital approval or oversight of my messages." Marcus nodded. "That seems reasonable." "Second, I want to establish a community spiritual care advisory committee that includes representatives from various faith traditions in our neighborhood. This committee would work with the hospital's professional chaplains to ensure that spiritual care remains connected to the community it serves." Patricia's expression brightened. "That's an excellent idea. It could provide exactly the bridge we need between the professional model and community involvement." "Third," Gloria continued, "I want to reinstate the morning prayer gathering at the hospital, not as a replacement for the chaplain's work, but as a complementary service. It could be held in the new reflection space that Dr. Whitmore is so proud of." This request elicited more hesitation from the doctors. "Whitmore will resist that," Marcus warned. "He sees the reflection space as a showcase for his modernization initiative. Then perhaps it's time for him to understand that true modernization doesn't mean discarding tradition, but finding ways to honor it while embracing new approaches," Gloria replied firmly. "That space belongs to the community that supports the hospital, not to any single administrator's vision." After some discussion, the Washingtons agreed to present Gloria's counterproposal to the full board. They couldn't guarantee acceptance of all terms, particularly the reinstatement of the morning prayer gathering, but they promised to advocate strongly for the complete package. As they prepared to leave, Patricia paused. "There's something else you should know, Gloria. Harriet Johnson has been asking for you. Her condition has deteriorated significantly in the past week." Gloria's heart sank at the news. "But I can't visit her in the hospital. Dr. Whitmore's new visitor policy." "Consider this your official invitation as a potential hospital partner," Patricia said quietly. "I'll personally escort you past security if necessary." That afternoon, Gloria returned to Westside Memorial for the first time since her dismissal nearly a month earlier. As she walked through the familiar corridors, staff members stopped to greet her, many expressing delight at seeing her back in the hospital. Harriet's room was in the oncology ward, now filled with equipment that hadn't been there during Gloria's last visit to the park. Harriet herself looked smaller somehow, her vibrant spirit still evident in her eyes but her body clearly failing. "About time you showed up," Harriet greeted her weakly. "I was beginning to think you'd forgotten your oldest friend." Gloria moved to the bedside, taking Harriet's frail hand in hers. "Wild horses couldn't keep me away, remember? Just took me a little while to find a way past the guard dogs." Harriet managed a small smile. "I hear you've become a radio star. Got all the nurses listening to you every morning now." "Hardly a star," Gloria demurred. "Just sharing the same prayers I've always offered, but through a microphone instead of in person." "Well, it matters," Harriet insisted. "Heard one of the janitors say your voice on the radio was the first thing that made him feel hopeful in months." She paused, her breathing labored. "But I'm glad you're here in person now. Some things need to be said face to face." Gloria sensed what was coming. "You're not giving up, are you, Harriet Johnson? We've got more muffins to share, more stories to tell." Harriet's expression softened. "Not giving up, old friend, just accepting what is. The doctors say days, maybe a week, and for once I think they're right. I can feel it." Tears welled in Gloria's eyes, but she blinked them back, determined to give her friend the strength and dignity she deserved in this moment. "Then we'll make them good days, won't we?" "That's why I wanted to see you," Harriet said, her voice growing more serious. "I need a favor, Gloria, a big one." "Anything," Gloria promised without hesitation. "I want you to speak at my funeral," Harriet requested. "Not just a prayer, but the main eulogy. You know me better than anyone still living. You know the parts of my story that matter, not just the facts and dates." Gloria squeezed her friend's hand gently. "I would be honored, Harriet, truly honored." They spent the next hour reminiscing about their shared history, raising their children together, supporting each other through the ups and downs of marriage, the civil rights struggles they had witnessed and participated in, the changes they had seen in their community over the decades. As Gloria prepared to leave, promising to return the next day, Harriet held onto her hand with surprising strength. "One more thing. Whatever that hospital offers you, take it. Your place is here, Gloria. Always has been. This community needs your voice on the radio, yes, but also in these halls." Gloria nodded, deeply moved by her friend's concern for her ministry even as she faced her final days. "I'm working on it, Harriet. Trust me." Over the next several days, Gloria divided her time between her new ministries and visiting Harriet in the hospital. Dr. Whitmore raised no objections to her presence, though he noticeably avoided the oncology ward during her visits. On Friday morning, just as Gloria was finishing her radio broadcast, Rebecca Turner appeared in the studio with a somber expression. "Gloria, there's a call for you. It's Karen Johnson." Gloria knew immediately what the call meant. She took the phone with a steady hand, her heart already preparing for the news. "She passed about an hour ago," Karen said, her voice thick with emotion. "Peacefully in her sleep. The nurse said she had been listening to your broadcast." "I'll come right away," Gloria assured her, already gathering her things. At the hospital, Gloria found Karen and several other family members gathered in Harriet's room. The body had been prepared, looking almost as if Harriet were merely sleeping. Gloria led them in prayer, finding the right words to honor Harriet's life and faith while acknowledging the profound loss they all felt. As she was leaving the room, Dr. Whitmore appeared in the doorway. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, the tension of their last encounter still lingering between them. Then, unexpectedly, Dr. Whitmore stepped aside to let Gloria pass, inclining his head slightly in what might have been respect. 3 days later, Harriet's funeral was held at New Covenant Church, where both women had been members for decades. The sanctuary was filled to capacity, with many people standing in the back and along the sides. Gloria sat with the family in the front row until it was time for her to deliver the eulogy. As she approached the pulpit, Gloria felt a profound sense of responsibility, not just to honor her friend's memory, but to capture the essence of a life well lived, a soul well loved. She looked out at the gathered congregation, recognizing faces from the hospital, the neighborhood, the civil rights movement, the church, and now her new ministries. Harriet Louise Johnson lived 82 extraordinary years, Gloria began, her voice clear and strong. Not extraordinary because of fame or fortune, but extraordinary in the ways that truly matter, in love given and received, in difficulties faced with courage, in faith that sustained her through life's darkest valleys. Gloria spoke without notes, drawing from a lifetime of friendship to paint a vivid portrait of Harriet, her wit and wisdom, her struggles and triumphs, her unwavering faith even in the face of death. She shared stories that made the congregation laugh through their tears, and moments of profound insight that Harriet had offered over their decades of friendship. In our last conversation, Gloria concluded, Harriet reminded me of something important, that our place in this world isn't defined by titles or positions, but by the lives we touch and the love we share. She faced death without fear because she knew her life had mattered, not in grand, history book ways, but in the daily bread of kindness, honesty, and faith freely given to all she encountered. After the service, as people gathered in the church hall for the reception, Dr. Whitmore approached Gloria. He looked uncomfortable, clearly out of his element in this community setting. "That was a beautiful eulogy, Mrs. Stevens," he said formally. "You captured Mrs. Johnson's spirit in a way that credentials alone could never achieve." Gloria recognized the admission for what it was, perhaps not a full apology, but at least an acknowledgement that her ministry had value beyond what could be measured by degrees or certifications. "Thank you, Dr. Whitmore." Harriet was a dear friend for many years. He nodded, seeming to struggle with what to say next. Finally, he straightened his shoulders slightly. "The board met yesterday to discuss your counterproposal. It was approved, all of it, including the morning prayer gathering in the reflection space." Gloria was genuinely surprised. "All of it? I had expected some negotiation." "Recent events have clarified certain priorities," Dr. Whitmore admitted. "The community response to your dismissal was more significant than anticipated, and the staff's morale has suffered considerably." Gloria nodded, understanding what he wasn't quite saying, that his modernization initiative, at least in terms of spiritual care, had failed to account for the human elements that couldn't be standardized or credentialed. "When would you like me to restart the morning prayers?" she asked. "Monday, if that's convenient," he replied. "The radio program sponsorship can begin immediately, and we can establish the Community Advisory Committee within the next few weeks." As Dr. Whitmore turned to leave, he paused. "One more thing, Mrs. Stevens. The new chaplains have expressed interest in mentoring with you. They have the technical training, but they recognize they lack the community connection that makes your ministry so effective." Gloria smiled, recognizing the olive branch being extended. "I would be happy to work with them, Dr. Whitmore. We all have something to learn from each other." On Monday morning, Gloria arrived at Westside Memorial at 6:30 a.m., just as she had done for decades before her dismissal. The reflection space was indeed beautiful, modern, and serene, with comfortable seating and subtle design elements that suggested spirituality without being specific to any single faith tradition. To her surprise, a crowd had already gathered. Nurses coming off night shifts, early arriving day staff, families who had spent the night with loved ones, and even a few community members who had heard through the grapevine that Gloria's morning prayers were returning to the hospital. Among them were two younger individuals, a man and a woman in professional attire with chaplain badges, who Gloria correctly guessed were the new professional chaplains Dr. Whitmore had hired. They looked nervous but genuine in their desire to be part of this gathering. At precisely 7 a.m., Gloria opened her Bible, just as she had done thousands of times before in the old waiting area. "Good morning, family," she began, the familiar greeting feeling like coming home. "Let's bow our heads together and invite the Lord into our day." As she led the gathering in prayer, Gloria felt the circle of her life closing and expanding simultaneously. She had lost something valuable when she was dismissed from the hospital, but that loss had led to new opportunities, new connections, and ultimately a stronger, more far-reaching ministry than before. The morning prayer concluded with Gloria's signature blessing. "May the God who heals bodies and spirits walk with you today. May you see his hand in the kindness of strangers and the skill of healers. And may you never forget that you are loved beyond measure by the Creator who knows every hair on your head." Amen. As the gathering dispersed, the two chaplains approached Gloria. "That was beautiful," the female chaplain said sincerely. "I can see why this means so much to the community." "Thank you," Gloria replied warmly. "And I look forward to learning from both of you as well. The Lord's work has many expressions, and we're all just trying to be faithful to our calling." Later that day, as Gloria visited patients throughout the hospital, now with an official badge that identified her as both a community volunteer chaplain and the host of Morning Blessings with Gloria Stevens. She felt a profound sense of completion. The path hadn't been straight or easy, but it had led her exactly where she needed to be. As she passed the oncology ward, Gloria paused outside what had been Harriet's room. Another patient occupied it now, another soul on a journey that might include pain and fear alongside hope and healing. Gloria said a silent prayer for that unknown person, then continued on her rounds, carrying forward the ministry that had defined her life, a ministry now expanded and strengthened by the very challenges that had threatened to end it. Thank you for listening. If this story touched you, please subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments.